and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to another edition of Triple B. As always, my partners in crime, Aaron next to us, and Ryan.
Oh, what up, buddy?
What's going on?
Big echo. Do you guys have an echo?
I don't have an echo.
Okay, that's only me. That's only me. That's fine. I'll fix it. But I want to welcome Jay Livingston and Jim Hughes to the show tonight. You guys are awesome, and we appreciate you guys being here as part of the show tonight. Jim and I go way back. We've been friends for a long time. Jim is just a hell of a guy, and I love him. And I love that he's here. Jay is the owner of National Trail Raceway. Jay, I've raced there a bunch. And that track has got some pretty cool special moments for me as well in the past. But we appreciate you guys being here. So thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
Thanks for the invite.
Absolutely. So tell us. We'll start with Jim. Jim, what are you up to this week? What's going on there at Tucson Dragway?
Well, we got the West Coast bracket racing. So we got the Southwest Showdown this weekend with Chris Forsyth is in town. We'll probably have about 300 rigs here, bracket racers. They're coming from Canada, Montana, Colorado. They come from all over the place. Weather's great. Might get a few sprinkles tonight, but we've got all the equipment fueled up, ready to go, and we'll be ready to go for a
I think we lost him. What'd you do to him, Chad?
I don't know. We did. We lost Jim. Oh, he's connected. I know they've got great internet there, so.
Dang. But it's like he's still there.
We'll get him back, I'm sure. Yeah. So, Jay, what about you? What's going on at National Trail this week?
Well, we don't open till the second weekend in April. It's something we started last year, and we actually start off with a no prep event. So we have had a bitterly cold winter. I've been here now 6 years, and we finally had a winter this year. And my little sissy ass was struggling when we had about 10 days twice over the winter when it didn't get above freezing. So we finally have got nice weather, so we've been out, uncovering all the infrared, scraping the track, just, turning on the water, getting the bathrooms ready and all that stuff. So
nice.
Yep. It's nice. The start to the season, and the weather's been fabulous this week, and everybody's jonesing to go race. I'm like, yeah, well, we're not ready, so you're going to have to wait.
Yeah. Hey, it's been a weird year as far as weather goes so far. I mean, I know we're only a couple months into it, but God, the weather has been strange. It's been cold where it's not supposed to be cold, warm where it's not supposed to be warm. So I know everybody is just itching to either get away from where they're at or get out to the track earlier than they ever get to. So I'm sure that you're hearing it a lot. What's the first event you're going to do for the year there at National Trail?
It's a no prep event. So basically we've scraped, the majority of the rubber off the track. We're going to sweep it, drag it just a teeny bit, and let them rip.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
I love it.
And it went over huge last year, and it's kind of a good way to start the year out. So we hope we have nice weather. Hey, look, he's back.
I don't know what I did.
Woo. Hey, it don't matter.
I don't know. Hey, I don't know what I did, but Chad can vouch for me that I'm not a techie guy.
He's not a techie guy. That is true. But that's all right. He knows when to hire the good techie people. So that's all right.
That's right. That's right.
Well,
sorry about that.
You're good. You're good. I want to welcome Barn and Neil and Doug DeLay and Lycan and all of the fans that are in the chat talking right now. We appreciate you guys. Doug DeLay says it was my fault. So, it probably is, Jim. You never know. So let's talk. I know Aaron and I have been around the drag racing world from both the racer side and the, sponsor and live streaming and all of that side as well as helping put on events. Ryan does the same thing. Ryan puts on his own event, the Tailgate Throwdown, we all know there are a ton of challenges that go along with putting on an event. And that alone is hard enough. But what about actually running a racetrack? I mean, because every day isn't like, ooh, race cars going down the racetrack. So what if you had to tell somebody like what the worst job or the worst part about owning a racetrack and running a racetrack is, what would it be?
Go ahead, Jim.
I'd say it's got to be ticketing. Ticketing with this new age of entitlement, and everybody needs something special. It's a really, really tough deal. For the 46 years that I raced, the first thing I do when I go to a track now is I thank the owners and the managers for everything they do, because I had no idea, Jay, what goes on behind the scenes to get ready for an event. Not just in all the, getting all the bells and whistles and the track and the facility in shape, ready to go, but there's just so much to it with your vendors, and somebody cancels, and it's just, I mean, the list can go on and on and on, but it becomes a part of your life, a part of what we do. We enjoy it. And that's really what I think keeps me going. I've only been doing this 10 years. Jay's been doing it for all of his life, like 70.
Yeah. Damn near.
He's only 60 years old. He's been doing this for 70 years.
Yeah.
You're magic.
Oh, he's only 60. Oh, I looked at him. I thought he was 70.
Yeah, it feels like it.
Well, if you met his dad, it would feel like 70.
Right.
Exactly.
Right. No, Jay and I go way back, and I learned a lot from Jay. The cool thing is, when I sold out of Hughes Performance and I was going to retire, and then I heard that the track was going to close down, I worked with Charlie Harmon and put a deal together to keep the track open. And I really had no idea that it was going to turn into another life-changing career for me. But with guys like Jay and Bill Bader Sr. and Sporty Vandermeer, there was so many people that were willing to help, and they said, call anytime you need anything. And that's really a huge part of our success here is the support and the backup I've had from so many other track operators.
It's funny you say that, because one of the questions that I was going to ask you guys about was the owners meetings that happen that like NHRA, I know, hosts the owners and track operators meeting or whatever once or twice a year and that kind of stuff. Is that just to go and hang out and say hi to each other deal, or are you really relying on each other for information at those kinds of meetings?
Well, there's a lot of information shared, and unfortunately, a lot of those meetings are, what changes do we need to make to the ET finals, and what changes do we need to make to the Lucas Oil drag racing series event, and things like that. What's kind of crazy is where the most of the information gets shared is in the bar after the day's activities or the day's meetings are done.
Right. True.
I don't know why. It just, I missed it. I was helping my mom move, and I missed, they did the dome meetings, and they held them at National Trail Raceway. And my counterpart, Jason Murray, he goes by JJ. He said in all the meetings he's ever been to, he got the most information out of the dome meetings that Jason Kennedy and Trackside hosted. So I thought that was pretty interesting. So, and it's not that the NHRA meetings are bad. It's just, we're dealing with, and I hate to say, the mundane stuff,
Right.
So we don't get to share that, oh man, you guys need to look into, hosting a drive-through Christmas light show or things of that nature. So,
right. What do you find the most challenging thing about owning and operating a racetrack?
Oh, it's all that way. I mean, it's just like Jim said, I think that we're held to a really high standard. I think racers sometimes don't allow us to be human. They expect everything to be perfect. and I always try to share with racers, when your trip zip on the tree and dead zero every run, we'll make sure that we're perfect. We make mistakes too.
Right.
When I take my shirt off, there isn't a big S tattooed on my chest, and I think that's the thing. We need to be allowed to be human and make mistakes and I love it when racers call us out on social media. Because you know what? One of these days, you know what I'm going to start doing? I'm going to start posting some of your all's time slips. Because some of you drive worse than Ray Charles could have, and he was blind.
Yeah. Oh, so I love that. I love that.
Just remember, I have all the numbers, and I can make some of them look really silly. I used to race. I raced Super Comp, and I Ray Charles did a few times too. So there you go.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I always tell everybody when they get, somebody gets wound up about the live feed, not working right or whatever, or, that, the tree didn't work right or the whatever, like some little mishap, right? We're racing cars. We're not saving the world. We're not curing cancer. We're not, I mean, come on. At the end of the day, like you said, everybody's human. Let's just roll with it and everything will be fine, So I know people get worked up about stuff sometimes that just blows me away.
Oh, I had somebody get worked up at us last year at the throwdown because the sun just happened to be at the right spot at the right time that made the stage bulbs in the right lane hard to see. I'm like, well, I don't know what you want me to do about that.
Come on, Ryan, you didn't call Mother Nature and tell her, hey, when a car pulls up to the line, could you dim the sun a little bit for us?
I didn't have her number, but I got it now. So we'll see.
Okay, good. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, we all know that you did that on purpose.
All right.
Oh,
you have
because God knows it must have been your buddy in the other lane was the one. Yeah.
It was actually my buddy that complained.
Oh, that's awesome.
Oh, imagine that.
That is so good. Aaron, what do you got?
I just wanted to ask, and I know the answers to some of this. What are some of the extra things that a track operator can do to increase revenue other than car count and races? And I want to go to Jay because I know he can answer this.
Well, and when I bought this place, kind of got to admit, I might have been over my head just a little bit because this was a huge endeavor. It was a way bigger racetrack, and I had a bank note, and I had to pay a mortgage on this thing. So I kind of had some things that fell into my lap that ended up being really good. Amazon needed to store a bunch of trailers, and so I had extra space available because I've got 230 acres. Well, besides, our Lucas Oil event and the Jake Sports Nationals, we get 600 plus cars for that. So, but we don't use all of the 230 acres. So I needed to find something that generated some revenue because we only race April through the middle of October. So we've got about a 6 to 7 month season. So, and the bank doesn't quit asking for a payment when we're not racing.
What?
I mean, you'd like to think that they would, but that's one of the things. We have the Ohio State Police and the Columbus Police Department that use our pit area for driver training. So we try to, and we've almost got it now to where there's really something. It's not every day of the week, but we have quite a bit of activity that almost takes place the entire year now. So that's helpful.
That's funny you bring that up because Jim and I literally just had this conversation the other day before we even planned on him being on the show about, what else you can do with the drag strip. And Jim, you go ahead, tell people what, some of the things you guys have done and thought of and are putting out there.
Well, what was crazy when I first took the track over, I didn't realize that there were so many other genres of racing and different platforms that people wanted to do. I came out of here and I said, okay, what's everybody want to do? Everybody want a bracket race? No. I said, oh, okay. You want a throttle stop race? No. We want a no prep, and we want to. I say, you want to do what? And so we came up with a thing beyond 1320. Once they explained to me that no prep was the equalizer, I had a whole different appreciation and understanding for what this group of racers were looking for, because they were NHRA didn't have anything for them. They were kind of left over. They didn't want to come out and bracket race, and they didn't want to come out and the entry class is supposed to be super street or stock, and then they go out and they find out that they got to buy $100,000 stock eliminator car to be competitive. They don't want to do that. They run big tire, small tire. We started running beyond 1320, and then I started doing scraping the track and doing no prep. And then I met Sam Corcus, got involved with Sam for 6 years, helping build the Street Outlaw program. And that was a really cool experience. I think it did a lot for drag racing in general. It brought a whole different clientele to drag racing. And now, right now, I think drag racing is as strong as it's ever been. Look at what Wes Buck has done, pretty single-handedly with the Pro Mod cars. I think he had 86 Pro Mod cars just show up in Florida. And there's a couple different series of no prep events going on now, and big tire, small tire, all glass, all steel. It's a good time to be racing because there's something for everybody.
Absolutely.
But you guys are also doing things that have nothing to do with drag racing at all at the racetrack as well, right?
Yeah, that's picked up a lot. Like one of the things we do, I talked to Jay about, is David Freiberger. We do zip tie drags and the duct tape drags, and that's a whole different a whole different group of racers. Then there's guys that they don't necessarily just want to race. It's cool to see how fast their car goes, but we're doing a lot of drag and drive events now. We're doing we've got 2 burnout pits that we put in, and burnout and drifting has become a big thing. We do weddings, we do birthdays. You've got to look at a drag strip as a venue, and the venue can be open to whatever you can think of that you can fill your days with activities.
Yeah.
Well,
because
Jay,
you're not making money if it's just sitting there, right?
That's right.
For Jay, I mean, they do the Christmas lights. So in the middle of winter in Ohio, when you can't race, you can't do anything else, it's a drive-through Christmas light show at the track.
That's awesome.
And so people are warming their cars, and you go through all the lights and everything else. I know he does that. I know you have the state cross-country meet out there.
No,
as well.
Well, we used to. Unfortunately, when the Christmas lights came in, it kiboshed that, because it was like right in between when they needed to set up and when they needed to open. We did it 1 year and we tried to accommodate both of them. Wow, what a train wreck. But we got through it, but it was a one and done. But yeah, they used to, back in the day, National Trail Raceway hosted the Ohio State cross country meet at the racetrack.
For cross country skiing?
No, running.
Oh, running, cross country track. Wow.
Yeah. So,
that's crazy.
I mean, that I don't think, I've never heard of another venue that hosted something like that. So
yeah,
that was really unusual.
The other thing that's cool about National Trail, he's got a convenience store in the middle of the pits.
That is true.
Yeah,
that is true. I will give you that. I have to say, so I have a funny National Trail story. So I don't remember if it was the second or third drag week or whatever, but it was one of the first couple. we're at National Trail, and it's day one, which is tech and test and tune. And there was a big group. When I say a big group, a dozen, 15 people, something like that, who had, went through registration and tech and were unfortunately going to have to slow their cars down to run 10.0 because they didn't have any licenses, right? Or guys that had a license couldn't run 850, whatever, right? They didn't have a license that was appropriate for their car. And so they were all down in the dumps. And I said, well, why the hell didn't you get your physical done and all that? Well, I didn't have time to get my passes. I'm like, you idiot, you can get your passes in while you're doing the drag and drive event. Like, come on, think here for a second. And the reality is that in a long list of things that people don't understand about NHRA, licensing is arguably the most confusing. And so we had a doctor who actually competed in Drag Week. And I went to him and I said, hey, dude, have you ever done an NHRA physical? And he said, yeah, for a couple of my buddies or whatever. I said, I know this is out of the ordinary, but if I gave you a room to do it in, could you do physicals for people here at the racetrack today? And he goes, well, I need to check vitals, so I need a blood pressure, deal and this and that. I said, I'll be right back. So I literally went to the ambulance crew, and this was like 2 hours before we actually were going to go down the racetrack. And I said, I have a doctor. Can he use the ambulance in order to do physicals, for people? And they were super cool. Let him use the ambulance. We had a line of like a dozen people standing behind the ambulance. They would climb in, get their physical, get out. We got them their runs. Like, we got all the licensing folks one extra run earlier than everybody else because it was only a partial run anyway. It wasn't any advantage. And we got everybody licensed so they could turn in ETs that their cars were actually capable of for the week. And it was awesome. And I'll never forget that. It was a great time. So a very, very cool little memory from that racetrack. And I've raced there, multiple times over the years, and it's just a cool facility for sure. That same year, Troy Coughlin brought deliveries of parts to the racetrack when we were there, like legit in his convertible Mercedes. He had drag radials in the back seat and the whole car stuffed full of parts, and delivered him to the racetrack and came and hung out. It was awesome.
Yeah. Well, and you know what's interesting is what you did is probably eerily similar to what Jim and I do. It takes very little effort to make the effort to help a racer out.
I agree.
It's called making it happen.
Yep.
And the last thing you want is some poor old guy that drove all the way from South Carolina to not be able to run his car.
Right.
And with a tiny bit of effort, you made that guy, you didn't just make his day, you kept from his whole week-long trip of being ruined, and he probably was planning for this for 6 months.
That's right.
Exactly.
It's not like you went and bought him a steak dinner.
Right.
You just made a little bit of an effort, and I will tell you, there's a lot of racers that really recognize that and appreciate if you just make a little bit of an effort.
That's very well said. And like you said, what you did at that event, Chad, that made a big difference. And you helped people make it happen, and it gave them that much of a better experience, and they'll end up coming back year after year.
And it didn't take me 30 minutes of total time to make that happen. Like, it was a matter of walking over to Doc, talking to him, walking up to the starting line to the ambulance, talking to them, coming back and telling everybody you can go do this. And the forms, the license forms were in the tower. So the track manager gave us the, forms, and everybody was in line standing there filling out their forms and doing everything. It was not a big deal, but it had a huge impact. And that's the kind of stuff that, well, we should all be doing, honestly, especially nowadays, you know.
Absolutely. And you know, that's and I know I'm reiterating it. The little effort you made, those guys planned all year long or a long time for it. And if it didn't happen, they're going to have to wait a whole year to get back to that same point.
Yeah.
That's right.
You know?
So for you guys, you know, when you're putting on an event for your own track, you guys, you know, you have control on these things, right? But sometimes you've got an event like Ryan's tailgate throwdown, right? It's he rents the racetrack basically, and comes in and holds his event. How is that easier, harder, better, whatever for you guys than just running your own events?
No, what I've found is we love working with promoters, and it's a shame that there's this misconception or sometimes reality that the promoter is always trying to get one over on the track is always trying to get one over on the promoter. The number one thing that we do here at Tucson Dragway is we are transparent with everything. You put everything on the table, and you know, you make a deal, a handshake, a contract, whatever you want to use, and you stick to that. And there's so much potential out there for everybody. And the worst thing that you can do is if you've got a promoter coming in and he's putting a good event on and he's making money and the track's doing okay, then that works. It's when you start thinking you can do it on your own and the track goes out to try to put the same type of events on. Now you become a competitor of your promoters coming to your venue. And I think that's a bad idea. You know, you just working hand in hand with promoters that come in, I think is something that we really strive to do right.
Yeah, go ahead.
No,
Jay.
I mean, I can't even add anything to it. I think, you know, I think Jim still, do you run import face off, Jim?
Not anymore.
Okay.
Down here, it wasn't a good,
good fit, whatever.
Good draw for Cliff.
Yeah, but the thing is, I think we both have had really good people we deal with, and and if you have somebody that you just don't mesh with, well, they kind of go away. But we're the same way. I mean, you make a deal, you stick to it, and we promote a lot of events ourselves, but we also welcome outside promoters because sometimes they have either a niche or something or a following that we don't have.
Right.
And it would be foolish for me to try to do import face off because that's not my forte.
Right.
So our event would struggle. So why don't I just kind of partner up with Cliff and let him succeed, and then we'll help and assist. And it's a great relationship. Really good.
Yeah.
What about
go ahead.
Sorry,
go
ahead.
So
what about
say, it's somebody who's been promoting for like 2 seconds. Like I literally promoted my last race last year. It's the first one I ever did. I made a deal with the track, and I'll tell you what it was. The deal was, hey, look, I don't want a penny from this deal. I just want to see if I can put it on. You give me the venue, you take all the gate, you take it all. I don't care. And if it works and it works well, then we'll work something out on the next one. But I just wanted a place to be able to try to get it done, and it worked. But as somebody who's been on the racing side of things, I know I've heard horror stories with promoters, and I know promoters can be the worst thing in drag racing for a lot of different reasons. But as track owners, what is the most important thing that you see being a problem with promoters that fail? Because I've heard that rules changing last minute, like I don't change rules last minute, but other guys do. I've heard that's a big problem. But from your perspective, where do promoters fail miserably?
I think the thing is, I think they think that a lot of our events we're making millions of dollars. And I think that they can do it too. And I think the misconception is that this is so darn easy. I mean, Jim's done it. I'm sure he has. I've done. We've all tried events and went, oh crap, that didn't work out very well.
Right.
So, and I never try to discourage someone, but I also try to lead them and say, look, I don't see this really working because I want to save them from taking the financial hit. But ultimately, if they're the ones that wants to take the risk, then I'll let them do it. But I really try to mentor and steer them and help them and get them to understand what they're up against.
That's right. That's how you create good partnerships and good working relationships.
Yeah, the last thing we want to see them do is absolutely trip and fall and skin their nose up. I mean, I don't wish that upon anybody.
Yeah.
So
I will out there though. I proved Jay wrong.
oh, absolutely. But you know what?
I did.
Good for you.
But you did. You tried to talk me out of it.
I'll never be too proud to say I know everything. Guess what? The minute you quit learning, take that backhoe and that loader full of dump it and just dump it on me because I'm done. but we had kind of experienced that, but Aaron really felt strongly, and I think what he had done, I think Aaron kind of did his homework, and I think Aaron asked around, and everybody was giving him their blessings or the thumbs up, like hell yeah. Now what's funny, that really worked out west. I don't know if it would work at National Trail Raceway because door car guys feel like they're advantaged, but the door car guys out west, I mean, it was funny because it was dragster versus door car. And when we got to the semis, was it all door car? No, it was door cars versus dragsters, wasn't it?
No, the first year was all door cars left at semis. Door car raced dragsters until one was gone. And door car won every year it. The dragster never won it as long as I was there.
Yeah, and I think the
That's
second
awesome.
year we finally had door car and dragster, and you and Danny Warnier were both the dragsters.
Yep, and I beat Danny for the final.
Yeah, and that's how you got your Wally behind you.
Yep, my Woodburn Wally. But I went to this idea, and I worked for UConn. I said, we're going to put up X amount of cash. I want to do dragster versus door car until one's gone. You know, you have to race. You have to race if you're door car. You have to race the dragster if there's a dragster left. And so, I mean, it was a gauntlet. We never filled the dragster side. We'd fill the rest of the field with extra door cars. It was amazing. Jay told me when I wanted to do this, he's like, there's no way you're going to get enough door cars. There's just no way. Door cars don't want to race dragsters. And we got everything from, I mean, stock limo car to, you know, a sportsman car to a top sportsman car. I mean, we had the gamut running against dragsters. And, I mean, throttle stop cars. And it was great racing. I mean, you talk about racers, you know, because it's a bracket race, so there's not a lot of folks in the stands. Racers would line the track with this. It was held on Friday night, I believe, when we did it. And, I mean, racers would line the track with us and just be cheering on either door car or dragster, and it was a hoot. It was a big hoot. It was
really
a big success.
And it really created a kind of excitement because all your dragster guys were rooting for the dragsters, and all the door car guys were rooting for the door cars. And it made a lot of fun. It really was a neat deal. They still do it to this day.
Do they?
You know what's funny about the door car versus dragster stuff? Because, you know, I mean, I've streamed a jillion races all over the country. I've never understood why there aren't more stock and super stock guys running in the big money bracket races. Okay. Right. Especially in the middle of the country in the East Coast. In the Western states, we get a lot of them, right? Like this right now at Tucson Dragway today, I guarantee you, there are a dozen stockers and super stockers minimum that are there, right? And those guys, yeah, those guys all show up, right? They all show up to the, Spring Fling, Million in Vegas, all that. Not every stocker racer, don't get me wrong, but there are a lot of them. And let's face it, in no box, that is stock eliminator like fodder, right? These are some of the best foot brake drag racers in the country are running, stock eliminator. Like, why would you not go when you only win $5 and a Wally at an NHRA event? Shit. If you go 2 rounds, you're making money compared to NHRA. And so I've never understood that. I've never understood why it isn't bigger and more popular with the stock and super stock racers to go big money bracket racing in the rest of the country. And again, I know there are some, but it's not nearly as heavy as you'd expect. In fact, I know big money bracket racers who also run stock eliminator who are at a race with their stacker and they're racing the dragster and the stalker is sitting upstairs in the stacker. It's like, why wouldn't you enter that thing in no box also? I don't get it, So yeah, it doesn't make sense to me.
Well, here's my take on that. And I had a racer share that with me, and I think the divisional racer is really a different racer than your bracket racer.
Oh, I know.
I think when they pull out of their house or whatever, and it's not a ding, but they're probably set in their life, they're close to retirement or whatever. They're going camping for the weekend, and hey, Ma, by the way, don't forget to hook up the trailer just in case we decide to race. They're really more concerned about where they're going to pit and where they're going to camp for the weekend, because for them, it's a huge social thing to where I think your bracket racers, I think there's that social, but they're probably what I would say they're more hardcore.
Yeah. I didn't think about it that way, but you're right.
It's not a ding on them at all.
Oh, no.
You know what's funny is I used to think that there was 2 different types of racers out there, bracket racers and divisional racers. Now there's weekly bracket racers. There's bracket racers that are maybe a little bit weekly, and they also run the 5 and 10 granders.
Yeah.
Maybe a 20 grander. Then you got your big dollar guys. They may lower their standards and run a 20 grander and maybe a 10 if they don't have anything else. And then you've got your divisional racers. So you really have 4 of them, and that doesn't even include all the no prep guys.
Right.
So, it's interesting all the different types of racing there are out there, because it never used to be that way.
Well, I don't think it's as much as the different type of racing. It's the mentality of the racer, because I had a guy call me a couple days ago, and Chris's race here this weekend. We have a test and tune tomorrow on Thursday. He said, can I come and test and tune on Thursday? I said, sure, as long as you are entering the event this weekend. He said, well, I'm a top sportsman racer. I really don't race Super Pro. And I said, well, what's the difference?
Yeah.
And he said, well, it's just different. I said, it's still, you leave off the top bulb. You've got a full tree.
Yeah.
Put your dial in. And he goes, well, I guess that's true.
Yeah.
And top drags, your top sportsman, it's a fast bracket class. You know, unless you're running heads up in stock, super stock, you write your dial in on the window. It's a bracket.
Oh, don't tell a boss racer that he's a racer.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
no, that's the thing is that, and you and I have talked about this, Jim. It's that, an index racer, thinks bracket racing is horrible. It's like the only difference between racing on an index and racing on a dial in is that whether I tell you what your dial is going to be or whether you decide or whether I set the index or you set the index. If you want to call it an index instead of your dial in, knock yourself out, dude. Like, knock yourself out. It doesn't matter,
Right.
That's why open comp, the set your own index class was for the guys that like, oh, I can't bracket race. I'm an index racer. It's like, oh my God, dude, you're killing me here.
Right.
And it's popular. So, hey, who cares? If they're racing, that's all that matters.
Right. That's the thing. It's good where you get in where you fit in. And we have what we call a club day. A club day is when if you've got 10 or 20 in your group of racers that are either big tire, small tire, index racing, bracket racers, top bulb, bottom bulb, it doesn't matter. They all show up and they can all run their own program, and they pay their tech card when they come through the gate. That's all the track gets, and then they take care of everything else. So it's pretty cool. We've got Jim Maroney, ex top fuel racer. He's doing a quick 16 program. Rick Webb is doing a Arizona grudge. So you have grudge racing, you have index racing, you have heads up small tire. And it's really cool to get all those different genres of racers together, because they start watching each other and they go, that's kind of cool. I never saw racing like that. That's kind of cool. I think I might try that. And it's just, I really like bringing them all together and having a good time.
Well, we got a comment here. Chris Costanza says, I helped Bowman in the NPK days, and there is nobody better than Jim Hughes. A great man and a jewel to the drag racing world. I agree, Chris. I agree wholeheartedly.
Appreciate that, Chris.
That's a great segue too, because we want to talk about the No Prep King stuff a little bit and what has transpired now. It's not No Prep Kings anymore. Ryan grew up street racing with a bunch of those guys back in the day in North Texas and Southern Oklahoma. And I'm friends with a bunch of those guys. Aaron has done rear ends for every one of those guys' car at some point or another, or still does today. So tell us what was it like, being a part of the whole traveling roadshow of the NPK?
I loved it. It was really cool. When Sam asked me to get on board with them, I thought about it for a little while, and he hired both Robin and myself, and we went around to different tracks, and we opened up that style of racing to some really cool national event tracks, and it just worked. I learned a lot from Sam Corcus. Very, very intelligent man. TV, I think, has a lot to do with the exposure that the Street Outlaws got, but it was a really cool form of racing. And to try to come up with some type of parity, that's where you need to have rules. So we would look at all the different combinations and write the rules around the combinations based on the track prep. So when you basically scrape a track, wash a track, take the most amount of glue that you can off the track, you're gonna find that the combinations don't always work the same that they do on a prep track. So the rules, a lot of people didn't understand them, but we had some amazing races going on. I think I was with Street Outlaws for 6 years, did rules and tech. They first looked at me as
lost Jim again.
No. We lost Jim again.
So
Man,
Jay, as somebody that
he's not a tech guy, is he?
We got the spinning wheel. He's on his way back.
Uh-oh.
And did you have an NPK race at National Trail,
We
Jay?
did. Actually, the very first year we were supposed to do it, COVID hit. So that didn't happen. And we were the first race out on the 2021 calendar. And Sam and the person he had kind of helping run the show, I asked him, I said, what kind of crowd are we going to expect on Friday? Oh, about 4,000 people. Well, about 7,500 showed up, and we literally got our ass handed to us. So after that, we made a bunch of changes. I said, well, what do you think we're going to expect Saturday? Oh, you'll be good at 7,000. Well, we had over 10,000, but we didn't get our ass handed to us that day because we were ready for it. But it's a lot of fun. It's amazing how quick and how fast they can go on a surface that's not prepped. Obviously, as the weekend goes along, the traction gets a lot better, but it's still mind-boggling on how quick they can make them run.
And did you find that the fans that came out for the Street Outlaws No Prep Kings events were the same fans that came to your other events, or were they completely different crowd, or was it half and half, or what did you see?
They had never been there before.
That's awesome.
Totally a different group. And what's crazy, it kind of fell off last year because it wasn't on Discovery. And I think that had a big part in their fan attendance being down. But the year before that, I mean, there were people from New York to Texas to Pennsylvania to Michigan, Iowa. I mean, I was amazed how far people drove. Now, here's an interesting thing. I asked Sam, I said, Sam, how did this ever get started? Because I'm always fascinated when somebody comes to you with an event, an idea, or something like that. You're like, where'd you dream this up? Was it, at quitting time at the bar, or, what's the deal? And Sam said that they were getting inundated with emails from the TV show. And the emails were, we really want to come see these guys. They've become part of our family, and we want to meet them. How can we do that? And that's how Street Outlaws ended up at the track, because the demand from the fans wanted to meet their favorite drivers and their favorite personality.
Which totally makes sense. And I mean,
Oh yeah,
they would have been, there's Jim.
hey,
And they would have been leaving something on the table if they hadn't have done that, right? I mean, here you are,
yeah.
I mean, you can't do enough public appearances to make it be the same as people being able to come watch them race at the racetrack.
The other thing is, there's no way they could have brought the fans to the street. It just wouldn't have worked, because you don't have the stands, you don't have the bath, you have no infrastructure. So that's how it got big, and that's how they brought it to the racetracks.
Yeah, I think that they did a couple of no prep events. A few of them did a few no prep events when the show was pretty new, like maybe 2 seasons in. And back when North Star was open, they had a big no prep deal, and I think 5 or 6 of them came out. And then Chris Hamilton was there. I know Chris Hamilton pretty well. But what was funny about it, what they noticed was that at that small track, Gene's Place was packed out because those guys were there racing. And I looked at it like, my son, he was 3 at the time, and he just couldn't believe that he loved Street Outlaw, and he couldn't believe that I knew all these guys. So when I saw Hamilton out there, I was like, hey, I don't know why, but my son thinks you're like some big star. So will you come up in the stands and come meet him? And he's like, oh yeah, dude. And so he came up there, and I have a picture of my boy. He's 13 now, but he was like, Chris is like shaking his hand, and he's like, oh my God, my dad does know him, but it was so funny. It was so funny because after we were walking down, I was like, we spent years in the streets till 3, 4 in the morning, and none of us would have ever have thought that anything like what happened, happened. And it's just the coolest thing ever. I think it's probably some of the best stuff that could have ever happened to drag racing in the last 25 years. Because just by you saying that you had so many people show up to your track that had never even been there before.
Oh,
And,
yeah.
Well, and I know
people that downplay it, they just don't understand how much it really rejuvenated drag racing.
Yeah, I mean, and here at Ennis, I was, Larry Larson and I have been friends for years, and we built the S10 together, and all those things. And when he debuted the Cadillac, it was, it was one of those deals where, he needed help working on the thing, and said, "Hey, in Dallas, can you come and help me turn around the car in between rounds?" And I said, "Sure." And so literally, my dad and I, and I think Cole actually came out there. We went and and had a good time, and Jim and I hung
Losing
out
you
there.
guys.
And it was it was fun. There were a jillion people there, and for the most part they were TV fans. Like you said, they were not the people that were normally at a race there at Ennis, and so it was really interesting to see. Jim, can you hear us? Oh, I can see you, Jim, but he apparently cannot hear us. I think that's great for drag racing. And I mean, obviously I know a bunch of those guys too, and they're good people, and they're fun to be around, and they're as hardcore as anybody else is about racing, whether it's on the street or on the racetrack. And so maybe it's not bracket racing, maybe it's not the same stuff, but look right now. I mean, Sean, Murder Nova, just went out and ran World Series of Pro Mod, in a Pro Mod car. And I know he didn't win or whatever, but he was in a great car, and he went out there and had a great time. And he's a heck of a driver, and Dave Comstock's the same way.
Dave was in Abilene last weekend, won 10K on Friday. I hung out with him for a few hours on Saturday, and then it rained out. Just went and shot the shit with him.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and what most people don't realize, and I mean, I know Jim probably knows this and Jay probably knows this, these are regular guys. I mean, for the most part, there's I would say probably 90%, there's no egos, there's no nothing. They put their boots on one at a time like we do.
That's right.
Well, the thing that was also interesting when I asked Sam, and this is a little background information, is when Sam and I think a couple of his cohorts went out to meet everybody in the very beginning, they went and they went and visited at the shops. And thing is, what ended up happening was they noticed after they left the shops, and then when they went back the next day, cars weren't in the same place. They really thought that Sam and his people were like the police or undercover or something like that. They were
Right.
They were very apprehensive because they thought, they were going to get nabbed or take their cars or whatever the case may be. So it was kind of comical, but they definitely noticed that things weren't the same. So they figured they had gone out that night and raced, but didn't want to share it with them.
Right.
One of the hot spots that they used to race on was literally on a frontage road right next to I-35, south of Oklahoma City. You can see the burnout marks from the freeway. And one of the racers owned the shop with a fenced compound up on the right. So if the cops came, they went into the private property. And that's how they kept from getting caught. And Brian
we got ran into that. We got ran into there once, and I think Ryan Martin was actually kind of part owner of that shop there at one point in time. And we got ran in there one night. Actually when Sean had just put the big roots blower on his Nova, and he was out for blood on Ronnie Pace, and we had run one round, and we had to race back over there because they showed up. And we all got inside the fence, shut the fence. Cops pulled up, and they're like, "What are you guys up to?" And there's like 300 people in this parking lot. Where it's like, "Oh, we're just hanging out." There's race cars.
It's fine. There's nothing to see here.
They were like, "Well, we got a report that there was some street racing going on here. Wouldn't be you guys, would it?" No,
no, officer. Would we do that? No. Think about how many cops, when the Street Outlaws show started, think about how many cops in Oklahoma laughed and went, "Man, I knew those sons of bitches were lying to me for all those years."
Yep. It was kind of interesting, kind of a side note to that. Back in the day when I was really young, I was like 5 or 6, my dad had a front motor dragster. And, back then you couldn't fire it up at home because it didn't have a starter. You had to push start it.
Oh, so right.
We lived kitty corner from the elementary school. And as you went down the road towards the high school, the road went up. So my dad would go up there and my mom would push him in the truck. And he'd spin the dragster around in the parking lot. And then my mom would push him down the hill and he'd fire the thing up and push in the garage because then he could check the timing or God only knows what. But there was a few times when the cops, chased him back into the driveway. So, but that's how you had to do it back then.
Oh, yeah. Hey, Jim, can you hear us yet?
Yeah, I can hear you now. I don't know what's going on with the...
oh, you're good now.
With my phone over here, guys. I apologize.
Oh, you're good.
Turn some lights on. There you go.
Yeah, you look great.
Yeah, the mic's on. I don't know what it's doing. It just said somebody tried to call in and it just...
Oh, it does that. If somebody calls, it does it. That's all right. You're good.
I apologize, guys.
No.
You're fine.
If you for next time, just put it on Do Not Disturb, but don't worry about it. You're good, dude. We love you. We don't care.
I don't even know how to put it on Do Not Disturb. How do I do that?
I'll show you tomorrow night.
Dad, you got to tell me Friday when you get here. You got to show me how to do that.
I will.
I will.
I love you so much, Jim.
The entire weekend.
Look, I got to get up. I ain't gonna lie. 10 years ago, 20 years ago, maybe, Chad and Brian Lone sat I sat in the front row of a seminar that these guys did. And he said, "Look, all you guys using your fax machines, put them away because social media is going to be."
Oh no!
Technology gets him again. God.
I'll tell you.
Every time he starts to make a good point.
I know. It was what he's talking about is we were asked to do to participate in a seminar at SEMA, at the SEMA show, and it was on websites and social media and the digital age that was coming, and like Jim says, this was honestly it was 15 years ago. Wow. And I looked up. And I'm sitting there talking, and I look up, and there you are. Oh, I can't hear you, but I can see you, Jim.
He's frozen again.
Yeah, so I'm at the SEMA show, and I'm doing this seminar, and I look up, and Jim is in the front row, and he's sitting up there. I don't remember if Robin was with him or not, but he's sitting at a table. It's a big seminar. And he's got his notepad out and everything, and he's making notes. And I use Jim and Hughes Performance as an example, right? Because I know them and their product. I didn't know Jim, like we weren't friends then, right? But but obviously I know who he was, and I know the, Hughes Performance name, and I, raced with them for years growing up and all those things. So I used him as the example, and Jim's eyes got this big around. It was hilarious. And then he subsequently asked a bunch of, good questions, and we had this big seminar, and there was a bunch of different people there. And when we were done and I came off stage, it was hilarious because Jim walks up to me and he goes, "Man," and I said, "Dude, I'm sorry for putting you on the spot," and he's like, "Oh no, it's great." and we've been friends ever since. And it was awesome. It was super fun, and it was one of those deals where I'll bet you Jim has told that story. I'll bet you he's told that story 100 times with me around, which means he's probably told it 300 times when I wasn't around, So, but yeah, it was hilarious. And he talks about the fact that he's not a tech guy, or a techie guy, as he says it. But the reality is Jim's smart enough to know he's not, and then hire really good people. So, one of the things at Tucson Dragway that makes me love streaming there is that the entire roof of the tower is a cellular internet looking thing on the roof. Like it looks like a bunch of cell tower, panels, right? Except it's not. It is ultra high speed point to point internet for all kinds of like municipalities and all this. It's not for public. And it's ultra high speed, and it's this private network and all this stuff. And so they lease the roof of the tower to this company. And in addition to them making a payment to them every month or whatever, I assume they do, they also get internet. And it's fast. And it works great. So I love streaming there because at least I don't have to worry about the internet when I'm there.
Well, and I think that's the hardest thing. It's way better now, and you could probably vouch for that. But a lot of your racetracks around the country, and when the next house is a mile away, they're not spending a lot of money on the infrastructure to make sure that you have really good service.
No. And it is better now because the cellular is so good, and then things like Starlink and what have you. But you're right. I mean, I'm glad you say that, Jay, because for years, and I know Aaron and Ryan have heard me say this, and they've watched and laughed. Like people go, "Oh, I don't understand why you don't have faster internet." I'm like, dude, have you been to where I'm at? Like, we are miles from anything. Yeah, like we're just because there's a drag race going on it doesn't mean we're in the middle of town. In fact, it means we definitely are not in the middle of town. It's like, God, people,
Yeah,
they weren't aware that they just paved the road last year.
Right.
Well, nowadays, there's a lot of tracks that have tower cams for all their events.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I remember in the Northwest, Mission was the first one that ever did that.
Yep.
Up in BC. So now it's not quote unquote a commentate a live stream, but a lot of them will just turn the tower cam on and you can just watch cars go down the track.
Yeah, exactly. And there are some racetracks, like oh my God, the name of the track is out of my head. But where Havlicks had their fastest streetcar reunion this last year. That little racetrack was awesome. They had good internet, and even better, they had like 3 cameras on the racetrack. They had one that was over on top of the tree that looked down the racetrack. They had one that was on a stand in between or behind the water box, actually, and then one on the tower. So when I went to stream the event, they were like, "Hey, can you use our cameras?" And I'm like, "You're damn right I can." And so I added my cameras to their cameras and everything, but their normal system had they were like HD security cameras coming into, the screen that's got all your different views on it, right? Well, they had 3 or 4. That's what they normally streamed at an event. And it had no audio, no nothing, like you said, but it did have picture so people could watch, the cars from different angles going down the racetrack. That's cool.
That was a tri-state, wasn't it?
That's right. Tri-state. Yes.
Iowa.
That's a cool little racetrack. They are really nice people there.
Yeah, I got buddies up there.
Awesome racetrack.
Yeah. I got buddies up there, and they want me to bring the tailgate throwing in up there. I'm like, I don't know. That's pretty far, bud. That's pretty
far.
It
is far. But it's a cool track.
Last I heard, that track was for sale for about $2 million. It's an all concrete track.
Yep.
No lights. Has a pond that you can catch fish out of on there and a campground. And I mean, if you put lights in that facility, plus it has an uphill shutdown. It's just a really nice facility. The only problem with that facility is that they can only hold so many racers with the campground and everything else. They hold a double divisional there most years, so they can hold quite a few, but it's in eastern Iowa. So, but the track surface itself is amazing, and they had something that I'd never seen at a racetrack. They had a metal expanded, well, it's not expanded metal grate, but it had a metal grate that basically you pulled out of the staging lanes, drove across that, and you did your burnout on a steel plate. So basically any gravel or anything else falls off through the metal grate, and then you pull the steel plate to do your burnout on, which is cleaned and brushed and everything else. When I was racing my dragster there, that was the cleanest my dragster ever left a racetrack, because, you know, water sprays everywhere on a dragster and coats the transmission with muddy water and everything else.
Oh, yeah.
It was like 50% cleaner. And most tracks should do that. I'm telling you, they put the metal grate in there so the rocks and the pea gravel and all that stuff drops off in there. And then they pull on just a metal plate. You wouldn't have to re-pour your burnout box every however many years, Jay would tell you.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a good idea.
One of the coolest things, too, at that racetrack, they had equipment, like prep and cleaning equipment, unlike anything I'd ever seen, that was all made by the owner of the track, who's some old farmer guy. And so, like, they could drag and spray from the same machine at the same time. Okay. So there was no multiple tractors having to do everything. Every tractor did 2 tractors worth of work on a normal drag strip. So it was insane. It was awesome. And the people running the racetrack, the family and whatever of the owners, well, of the guy that leased it, I guess. Anyway, they were all in their 20s. And they were running this racetrack like a well-oiled machine. It was awesome. It was so cool to see young people running a racetrack. And I went out of my way. I told them, I know I sound like an old man telling you this, but you guys are awesome. And it was a great group of young people. And I mean, like 3 or 4 guys and 3 or 4 girls, and they were on it. And they were running this thing, I mean, well-oiled machine. It was really, really cool to see. And like you said, the track has a campground that's a nice-looking campground.
With showers.
Yeah, it's a cool place. It really is.
I think every racetrack should have showers.
I agree wholeheartedly. I know that Beach Bend is, you know, one of the biggest things there is the campground, right? Because and even in the drag racer pits, there's a shower. One of the buildings has showers. But if you have a campground right there at the end, I mean, you can park your car in the campground and pit in the campground. That's totally okay. Like, it's great. I love that there. And the campground at Beach Bend is insane. I mean, how huge it is. There's hundreds
it just floods this year.
It does. Yes, it does flood. And it just did real big.
Yeah.
So, okay. One of my other questions then, Jay, if you were me,
thanks,
or
Alan,
Ryan or whatever, and you were, you were going to, give us some advice if we want to put on an event, what would be your advice to a new promoter?
Well, I think the thing you have to be wary of is you need to make sure that you've got an audience to come out to your event, and I think anymore you have to. And Ryan, I'm not familiar with your event, but just the name of it, I think you cater, I'm just going to guess, you cater to a really different group of people that we probably wouldn't see in an event, a normal event.
Yeah. Right.
And I think really for the new promoters, the other thing that's kind of odd, and this just popped in my head, promoting big money bracket races, it baffles me when I want to put on a $5,000 or a $10,000. An outside racer can come in and lease our facility and do better than we can, and I just that blows me away. I don't understand why. I don't know if it's okay that outside promoter or / racer, it's okay for him to make a bunch of money, but it doesn't feel like we're afforded that same opportunity. And I'll give you a crazy scenario. When my dear friend Kyle Seipel was still alive, I made mention when JJ, who works for me, when he and I went to Bristol and talked to Peter and Kyle about putting a fling on a national trail, and I said to him, I said, we could do the same exact event, give away the same prizes, the same money, the same everything, and we'd probably get 50% of the audience that they would get. It blows me away.
And I'm
Wow.
with you, because it happens that way a lot of times.
Oh yeah.
I know that for some racers, like, and we'll use Kyle and Pete specifically, because I've worked with them forever and been friends with them forever, and I miss Kyle all the time. As you said, in fact, the last time I saw Kyle was actually at this race that we're having in Tucson this weekend, and a few years ago now. But the thing with the two of them is they're racers, so people go to their event because they trust them, because they're like, oh well, if Kyle and Pete are putting it on, it must be great, right? There's like a different kind of I don't know, acceptance or legitimacy or whatever, and which isn't fair, okay? But I think it is the reality sometimes,
I agree with that 100%. I mean, there's always the stigma that tracks are out to make money. Well, here's a newsflash.
You have to.
It's a business. It's there to make money. If they don't make money, they're not around.
You want them to make money.
You do. And you hit it on the head, Chad. It's because they're a racer, so people relate to them. They trust them more because they feel that they've raced those same races themselves. And although Jay's been a racer in the past, I mean, he raced Top Alcohol Dragster for a little bit too. But I mean, it's just that stigma of it's put on by a racer. If Pete and Kyle put on a race, or whoever else, the Folk Promotions, or there's a bunch of them out there. There's a couple bad ones out there. I won't mention their 3-letter name.
Yeah.
But
sorry, I teased. I didn't mean to.
But this leads me to a question though. When you held a fling, Jay, how was it for you?
It was good. I think, and it's going to be interesting because Peter has moved his event to Norwalk after doing, I think he did 2 events at Bristol last year. It just never gained the momentum that they were looking for. And, but there's a lot of medium-sized money races in Ohio. And I don't know if that's what kept it from being big. So it'll be really interesting to see, what the racer count is, with it being at Norwalk. So,
and Norwalk's like an hour and 45 minutes north of you.
Yeah, 120, about 2 hours.
Yeah. So coming from somebody that spent 6 years in the Midwest, I can tell you this: the Midwest is great. It's probably the best place in the country to go big money bracket racing. When I say big money, I say $5,000 or more. Probably the best place in the country, because I lived in Iowa. I lived in central Iowa. I could go to Minnesota. I can go down to Missouri. I can go over to Ohio. I can go to Kansas. I can go to Oklahoma. I mean, everything's within less than 10-hour drive.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
I mean, I could be in Huntsville, Alabama in about 12 hours. Okay. So, I mean, there, and it kind of dilutes everything. I mean, you can be in Byron, Illinois for a race. You can, I mean, there's a lot of good tracks up in Michigan or wherever else. There's a lot of good tracks that put on a lot of good races. So it dilutes it. I think the Fling put on a great race. I've been to a bunch of them. I mean, being on the West Coast, everything else. I went all the way out to Bristol, raced one in Bristol. It's a great program, and Pete has continued legacy without Kyle and done a great job. I just think that's the bad market for that type of race. Just because there's so much dilution there, and there's so many, like Jay said, there's so many. You can go almost any weekend in the summer and be at a 7 to 10 grander for 2 to 3 days.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's 777s at Cedar Falls. I think they're like, it's like $250 to enter, and you got buybacks too. I mean, it's just, there's a lot of cheaper, decent money races, and the Flings are expensive. They are.
Yeah.
I mean,
and they are expensive, but I would argue that they are a good value, but you still are spending money, right? It's, I don't remember what the number is now, but it was like $675, and that got you all 4 days, and not including the Million, in Vegas, which was Friday's race. That was a separate entry, and that one was $2,500, right? But that was to race for $1 million. If they had 400 cars, it was $1 million. And even when they didn't, it was 400 and 300, 400, $500,000. But the 675 bucks to race for 50 grand each of the other days is still a value, but it's still 675. And then when you add tow money and you add buybacks and all the things, you're right. It's not cheap if you drive far.
Well, Vegas is a value only because, I won't say only because, it's a value because of where it's at on the West Coast. There's just not a lot of big money races on the West Coast. That's why, like Tucson with his name escaped me. Let's put that race on this weekend. But
Chris Forsythe.
Yeah, Chris Forsythe. His races are really good, but there's just not that many of those races on the West Coast, and and that people can get to. I mean, Tucson, you can pull out of Colorado and Arizona, and I know people that are coming down from Canada, like Jim said, from Washington State, they're racing Tucson, and then they're going to turn around, fly back home, and then they're going to come back and go to Vegas and race the Fling.
Yep,
it makes it worthwhile. But when you have almost every weekend you can race for 10 grand within a 4 to 5 hour drive, I mean, that's what dilutes it. That's really what dilutes it.
Yeah.
No, I agree. And it's funny because, when you're in the Midwest, you don't have to think about that because everything's close, like you said, right? So racing every weekend doesn't matter. But if you want to run these big races on the West Coast, like you said, then you've got to plan for it, right? So you got guys that'll come and they, go to the Southwest Showdown at Tucson. Then they go to Vegas for the, spring divisional and the spring fling, right? They try and stagger all that stuff and store their stuff wherever they can so that it can just sit there for a few months or a few weeks or whatever. And then when you get into the fall time, people do the same thing, right? Because you've got divisionals, you got divisional, you got the national event, you got the turkey race, you got streetcar super nationals. You know what I mean? Like all those things start stacking up, and you see guys do that because they don't have as many places to race out there as they do in the middle of the country where you can just go every Saturday, So,
well, you can get off work on a Friday night and be at a big money race. I mean, the fastest I ever went from north of Seattle to Vegas was 17 and a half hours.
Yeah.
I was hauling ass.
Oh, yes. Well, and people don't understand too that don't look at a map. California is huge. It's like the size of 6 East Coast states over here, or 7 East Coast states. Like it's giant. Okay. People think that you can just drive from one end to the other in an hour or something. I grew up in the Bay Area in Silicon Valley, And people used to laugh and like they acted as if, like, oh, so do you just go to Disneyland anytime you want? Like, dude, that's an 8-hour drive. Like, what are you talking about? And it cost $1 trillion. I don't know where you guys get your money, but I mean, it's a long way between racetracks out there. The beauty is like Tucson, where Jim's at, is it's a 6-hour drive or so. From depending on where you're at in SoCal, it could be anywhere from let's say 6 to 8 hours, right? So it's not a bad haul. It's a nice drive, and there's a lot of great there's a lot of great racers that are in Southern California and in Arizona and New Mexico. So the draw is good. Vegas people come down to Tucson as well. Vegas is not convenient. If Vegas wasn't Vegas, right, and people didn't want to come because of the city of Vegas and all that, then it would be a lot harder to put, people in the stands or people on the racetrack, because it's not convenient to get to Vegas from anywhere except Southern California and Phoenix, or let's say Flagstaff, New Mexico, or Flagstaff, right, Arizona. It's not because from Northern California or anywhere north, like you're talking about, Aaron, is a haul. Like you have to go a long way in order to get there, because there's a whole mountain range in the way. That's what people don't understand. We have these things called mountains in California. We got a big line of them on the ocean and a big line of them on the east side of the state. And you got to go over it, around it, or through it in order to get to Las Vegas from anywhere else on the West Coast except Southern California.
Oh, on our way down from Washington, we cross over 7,200 feet of elevation coming down into Vegas.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a haul. I mean, and I think it's Highway 93, which is the fastest way to get there, is a 2-lane road that with no shoulder and about an 8-foot ditch.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
I mean, you better have your tires in order and everything else, and have a freaking light bar on your truck like I did to see all the critters, because there's a ton of them. I mean, it was not good. I enjoyed my time racing in the Midwest just because it was so easy to get off on a Friday night, and I could be at 3 different tracks in 2 hours, And
where do you live? Where do you live now, Aaron?
I live in Coleman, Texas now.
Oh, okay.
So
Which is about this big.
I'm in Central. I'm a town of 3,900 people. But I'm in Central Texas, and I'm loving it. I played golf today. Of course, Chad called me when I was on the 5th hole.
I did. I called him and I'm like, "What are you doing?" And he goes, "Golfing." And I said, "What?" And he goes, and he golfs a lot. I mean, just to be fair, but he goes, right. "Oh, well, I was having some problems with some parts, so I decided I was going golfing." And I started laughing at him. I said, "Great." So then I talked to him for about 5 minutes. He goes, "Okay, dude, I have to go because I have to hit my drive." And I was like,
"I did."
Okay. All right.
It was a good drive too.
Nice. I'm going to take credit for that then. I'm going to, at one point, me and Ryan need to come and out one day, like during the week, and we got to go golfing with you. I have really nice golf clubs, but I haven't hit a golf club or a golf ball in. I think I went to Top Golf once in the last like 6 or 8 years, but other than that, I probably haven't hit a golf ball in 15 years. So I need some driving range.
Are you talking about like an actual golf course where you hit the ball far and find it?
Yes, you get to drink while you're there. You drink beer and drive golf carts.
I'll drive the golf cart and drink beer. You guys can play golf.
Okay.
I'm with you.
I'm still 41 years old. I'm not there yet. Okay, I'm just not there mentally yet.
He's the youngest one here.
But that's why you can operate a cell phone, unlike these 66-year-old guys. Chad,
let me tell you something, Jim.
Hey, look, I was up in the Nitro Club, Chad. You know where that's at.
Oh yeah.
So then it's like, how do you? And all of a sudden, my phone turned off again, right? Everybody's blowing it up. Where's Jim? Where's Jim? Because we're having the golf cart race out there. And I
Right.
just stuck away to do this. And so my phone's blowing up. Every time it did, it shut me off. I am so sorry, guys.
No, you're good.
And then,
You're fine.
I go outside and I said, and Forsyth's sitting at the bar, and he goes, "Hey, man, where are you going?" I said, "I got to go to my truck. My phone just died. I keep getting knocked off." And he said, "Why are you getting knocked out?" "I don't know, something about do not disturb." He showed me where that button was. So I hit that do not disturb button. So I'm good at that now. There's no lights because I'm sitting in my truck with my phone plugged in on the charger. Sorry.
I love it.
It's been a
I
long day.
love it, Jim.
Hey,
Hey, you know what? That's on
But-
par for this show. So don't
Hey,
worry about it.
that's not called problems.
Give up.
That's not problems, Jim. That's called getting it done, sir.
Hey,
You
Chad.
know what? I did everything I could to give back. So I'm sitting in the dark in my truck, but I made it back on because I didn't want to hear it from Chad when he gets here Friday.
Well, you're not going to hear it because you probably forget to turn off Do Not Disturb.
I was just going to say, if
That's a
anybody
good point.
struggles
You
to
do
get
need to
ahold of
remember to
Jim,
turn it off again. Yes. Oh my
You're
God, that's
probably
so
right.
priceless. That's so priceless.
That's the first time I've ever turned it on. What I should have done, Chad, was gone up in your room so I could show everybody where you're going to be.
That's
working
true.
from
It would have been
weekend.
good from the perch. Yeah.
And the best part, once you guys see it, you can imagine Chad, because we are going to do this, go down the road, put the jacks up. It goes about 20 feet in the air. And
It
Chad's
does.
going to be up filming as we're doing a dragon drive.
Yes.
Nice.
Write that
Uh-huh.
down. You'll see it.
It's going to be awesome.
There may be on some back roads, but again,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, guys.
Oh no, you're good. You're good. Well, boys, we're at an hour and a half, so let's start figuring if we're how to wrap this thing up. Any other questions you guys have for either Jim or Jay at this point?
I do. As a new promoter, my race last year, we had 64 trucks in total show up on for the first event. This time around, I've got 100 right now, 108 pre-registered racers coming to this one at the end of the month. My struggle that I've had is getting my foot in the door with some sponsorships. Have any advice for a guy like me on that?
you know, the thing is, when I first started here, I struggled. I mean, I reached out to people and we weren't attracting any sponsors. I think what you'll see is, and like what we've experienced, now those people are calling me wanting to get involved at the track because we've proven ourselves.
Yeah.
So
Right.
instead of me chasing down potential sponsors, they're
wanna
calling me. And I guess I'll just say it this way. I told JJ, I think it was our second or third year into running this, and I said, I called him up, but I had to run to town because I don't know, the darn pump on the scrubber broke or something, and I came back and it was sprinkling, and the racers were still pulling into the track, and I said, dude, we've arrived. I said, they believe in us, they trust in us, they know we'll do everything in our power to make it happen if it can happen, because they're driving to the racetrack with the windshield wipers on. The same goes true for trying to land some sponsors. You're gonna have to, it's just like trying to start a new Top Fuel team. How many people come out in the very beginning and they land a sponsor?
Right.
Yeah.
That's
But-
true.
You got to go and prove yourself.
But once you
get out
prove
there and-
yourself, then they'll come. The other thing is, if you can find any of your participants that have businesses, they always want that to continue and they're willing to throw money at it. But you may not see it the second year, but I think you'll be amazed the third year
Yeah.
how many people start calling you and you don't have to call them.
That's
Third
great.
year is usually the turning point.
Yep.
First year, you're probably going to lose some money. Second year, if you can break even, make a few bucks, you're doing good. Third year is when you really need to decide, okay, we're going to keep doing this. At that point, that's when you need to tell people that you're on the Beards Burnout and Beer Show, and it'll take off from there. That's all you need.
I appreciate it,
Chad
guys.
Reynolds.
Let me add to that. Let me add to that, Brian.
Mhm.
As somebody that handled all the sponsorships for a company for a number of years, and I'm the one that called Jay. By the way, he didn't call me, even though we're friends. So, and I called it the early stages. Just saying. But one thing that I would always field the call of, hey, I want sponsorship for my race team. I want sponsorship for my event, and my thing was always, I need a written proposal. That was the first thing I tell somebody. I want a written proposal, and if it's an event like yours, I would want to know what the gate was. I want to know what the entries were. I want to know basically metrics, and what you expect for increase year over year. Obviously the rates for different, gold, silver, platinum, whatever it is. You put all that together in a nice little presentation, and your success rate will go up by about 90%. Other than somebody just sending me an email saying, I want you to sponsor my stuff. Okay, well, that doesn't work. No, that just goes in the trash file.
No, we put together a really nice package and in a proposal, and I had a few people that were interested, and like Brian Tooley, and a couple others, because I have sponsors that are guys within the group that have companies, and they sponsor the event. But I've had some reach out, and we've talked back and forth, and then it kind of goes stagnant. So I'm not one of those people that's a very persistent person. I present what I've got, and I sent them links to the videos from the event and all that kind of stuff. I sent them links to the Facebook page, because the Facebook page is growing like at 100 people a day. But I had the same thought process as you, Jay, and Jim as well. Is I wanted to prove myself with it, and the second one is going to prove. I told myself I wanted to double the entries on the second one, and I've exceeded that. So I'm setting goals for myself and for what our team is. There's three of us that are really working our butts off to get this thing done. So when I say me, I'm actually speaking for all of us. But I told myself that when I get to the end of this year, I'm trying to try to do 2 this year. We did 1 last year. We were going to try to do 2, but rain and everything killed us in the spring, so we had to push back to October. But we still maintained that truck count with 3 rain out dates. So I was pretty impressed with that, and we got a really good following. So I'm hoping
that's true.
Next year, it's really flying.
I got one more event. I got one more thing for Jay and Jim. So it's always been my mindset, and I got this through to a track operator in Iowa. It took me 2 years to do it, but he wanted, we'll say, $3,000 for a line or for a sign on the starting line, and on the track side, and he wasn't getting it. I mean, and I finally went to him and I said, "Hey, Guy," I'll just call him Guy because I don't want to out him. You know what? You can sell 6 signs at $500 a piece, or you can sell 1 sign at $3,000.
Exactly.
When you start packing this place, you can start upping the rates.
Yep.
And I finally got through to him. He started, doing cheaper signage and everything else. And you have the cost of sign. I told him, I said, do a 3-year contract. So it covers the cost of sign and everything else. You're going to get your money. You're going to lose a little bit on the first year. Not really lose, but you're not going to get the full amount because of the sign cost. But just bake it all in. And he thanked me after year 3 and said that, you know what, this really helped me get some more revenue in the track, blah, blah, blah. What's your guys' approach? Am I ass backwards? Am I, I'm thinking that, you know what, I'd rather sell, 10 $500 signs than sell 1 $5,000.
Well,
I think you're spot on. One of the best representations of that is Boise. If you look at their track, I mean, they've got color everywhere because they have a very cost-effective sign program. And so they've got, 1/8 mile worth of signage up on both sides. They've got the background. That's one thing that I lack here at Tucson is the ability to go out there and ask people to put a sign up or sponsor. I tend to do everything on my own, and I know it's not the right thing to do, but no, I think you're spot on. If you make it a cost-effective sign where maybe it's $500 a year, and do, like you said, a 3-year contract. That's you just gave me the incentive, Aaron, to get off my ass and get something going, get something written up and sent out to people, because it's the more and more exposure that you get, the more they'll want to be involved.
Well,
me up.
there's two other
Hit me up,
things that I would say about that. One of the things I would say is also don't forget that there are other things for people to put signs on to sponsor it at a racetrack, right? So you can have the, whatever, like in the instance of Tucson has the Nitro Club, right? So if it was the Bang Shift Nitro Club, right, then charge Bang Shift to put, their name on it or whatever. The bar can be the Brian Tooley Racing Bar or whatever. Like there are opportunities there. Those are a big deal. But the other thing is, and actually this is because of what you were saying, Jim, is why I thought of this. If somebody wants in a facility like you guys have, where there's, it's more than just the racetrack. If a company came in and you can say, hey, you know what, we have different levels, right? We have $500 signs, or you can do a $1,000 sign. And for the $1,000, we're going to put 2 of your signs up, and you're going to get a $500 rental credit here at the facility to hold a corporate event, right? So you can do your company Christmas party here, you can do your company picnic here, whatever, and we're going to give you a credit because you're a sponsor for $500 worth of thing. You're still going to make money because you're going to charge them, more for all the other things they're wanting to do, but it makes them feel like they've got something there, as well, or that they get Nitro Club memberships or, whatever, like adding stuff on when you're a racetrack or a race in Ryan's case, sometimes like the VIP experience kind of stuff can really be a big deal to people,
Oh, yeah.
Yep, absolutely. No, you're spot on. You got to think outside the box, like you said, and sometimes you've got to be creative and just go out there and put it together and make it happen.
Well, and I think the one thing that I'll share with you is it was kind of interesting when Winston exited drag racing because of the government.
Yep.
I was talking to John Vandermeer from Vandermeer Speedway, the dad, and I asked him, well, back in the day, how much did you get from Winston? He said, we used to get $80,000 a year from Winston. He said, go try to find an $80,000 sponsor.
Yeah.
Right.
He goes, I would rather have 10 $8,000 sponsors, because if I lose one of them, I know I can replace them with somebody else.
That's
when
true.
You have
exactly what Aaron said. Yep.
Yeah, the giant in the room, you're toast. And you made a good point too. When you give different price levels, you accommodate more people that may not have that in their budget to spend at the racetrack. So it'd be great to sell every sign for $5,000. That's just not reality, because not everybody has that in their budget.
Well, and I think that today, and I'm going to use this as my roll into the wrap up. I think that today in our current economic climate, people are afraid to spend money. Consumer confidence is at all-time low. Prices are up and down and all around and all those things. And it makes it harder for people to go out and spend money, either because they don't have it or they're afraid to go spend it.
Right.
And we know we've seen that for the last several years, right? I think it's more and more important for the racers that are out there, the fans that are out there, the promoters and the racetracks to really work together. Remember that, like Jim said, 5 minutes of helping somebody can be the difference between a lifelong customer and a one-time customer. But I would say if you are a spectator or a racer that's out there, and I say this all the time over the mic when I'm announcing at events, but You know, go to your local racetrack, right? Go spend money with them. If you can't go to an event, right, because you're busy and your kids got travel baseball and you can't convince them that's stupid, then, you know, you've got to go do family stuff, right? I get it. But then go online and buy a Tucson Dragway hoodie, right? Go buy a National Trail Raceway, you know, t-shirt. Or just go up to the gate when you drive by and they're holding an event and hand them a $20 bill. Like, it doesn't take a lot to support your local racetracks. The reality is everybody wants to yell and scream because they think that all the racetracks in the country are going away. And I know we've lost racetracks, but today there are more operating drag strips in the United States of America than there has ever been before. Okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So drag racing isn't dying. The racetracks aren't all going away. There may be some, don't get me wrong, but you know what? They wouldn't have gone away if they were financially viable. And that isn't all on racers or all on spectators, but some of that responsibility is ours, right? So, you know, me and Ryan are lucky, right? We have 3 drag strips within an hour-ish of our houses, okay? There's another one getting ready to open that's only 20 minutes down the road from XRP and Ennis.
And Abilene's back open now.
And Limpy's got Abilene going. I mean, there are drag strips everywhere for us. Okay.
Yeah.
But we still bitch when one of them closes. Okay. So, you know, we get it. We do get it. You know,
you bitch when they close, but the problem is that the people that are bitching when they close are the people that have been sitting on their ass at the house watching live streams or watching videos instead of putting their asses in the seats. And that's the thing that drives me batshit crazy about the world I live in today. You can put on a badass event, but getting people to actually come through the gate is the hardest thing, I think, out there. Unless you've got like an MPK deal where the television is driving it. Right. But asses in seats. Take your kids to the racetrack. Go.
Yes.
Go let them enjoy the smells, the sounds, you know, the feel. It's irreplaceable. It's irreplaceable.
It is. And speaking of irreplaceable, I know that the racing world, you know, all saw the news. Our friend TJ Bailey, who Aaron and I and Ryan all know well. Jim, I know you know TJ very well.
Awesome.
You know, our thoughts and prayers and good mojo and all those things go out to everybody, you know, at the Texas Motorplex, all of, you know, TJ's family. If you did not hear because you live under a rock, he was killed in a tornado that came right over the racetrack, literally one of those hopping deals. He and his family were at the racetrack in their RV trailer because he was prepping for TX2K, which is started today, I believe. And so he was there prepping. And so instead of driving from Midlothian, which is where he lives, which is, I mean, it's only 25 minutes or so. It's not far. But he had the RV trailer out there, had his kids and his wife there. And their trailer was hit by the tornado and Bailey was killed. And his wife was injured, but not, you know, not critically, and is out of the hospital. The boys are okay. But just a sad deal. TJ was fondly known as El Prepe. He was an awesome track prep guy, a great starter, just a great team member. Yes, I've known him for years. I've worked with him at LS Fest events, at NMCA events, at tons of events at the Motorplex, Texas Radio Roundup, you know, everything, NPK, all the things. And that dude had a smile on his face 90% of the time, some smart ass thing to say. And most importantly, and I never even thought about it until I was explaining how great a guy he was to my mom the other day. He was a true mentor and a coach in every sense of the word. There wasn't a secret in his repertoire. Anybody that was there to help and to work with him on his team, he taught them every single thing he knew, every opportunity he could. And that's something special. So TJ will be missed on the 17th, I believe it is. I'll have to look at the 21st. The Friday the 21st at 11 a.m. There is going to be a celebration of life there at the racetrack for TJ. So I know we'll all be there. And again, just, hug the people you love, tell them you love them. Be nice to people tomorrow. Say hi to people that you don't know. Ask people if they're having a nice day. Don't yell and scream and bitch and moan. We got too much of that shit going on nowadays anyway. So have fun. Go to the racetrack. Be nice.
Yeah. Hug somebody, support your local racetrack. Quit being a little bitch about it. Let's go.
Exactly.
Ryan.
Jim,
Hey, Chad,
thank you
Chad,
so
when
much
you,
for joining us tonight, dude. I'll see you either tomorrow night or Friday morning. And
okay, when you're flying in tomorrow?
Yeah, I get in at like 7:15 or something tomorrow evening. So yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. We're supposed to have a little bit of weather coming in tomorrow evening, but then by Friday morning, we've got all the equipment all juiced up and all filled up and ready to go if we should need it. But you've been here before when we woke up and one year we had 5 inches of snow on the ground.
Literally, that was last year. No, year before last.
No, 2 years ago.
2 years ago. Okay.
Yeah,
dude, I get off the airplane and I'm looking out the window of the airplane. I'm like, what the hell is all this white crap? I get out of the airport. I drive to the racetrack. The whole place is covered in snow. Dragsters and door cars are outside. Nobody knew snow was coming, expected snow.
No. I remember that. Yep.
Yes. Yeah. Who was the dragster that was full of snow? Like they didn't put a cover on it.
That was a roadster from
from
Idaho. It was from Idaho. It was Wallace. Tim Wallace.
That's right.
Yes, Tim Wallace's roadster was full all the way up to the top of the body with snow. It was hilarious.
Yep.
He was like, I guess I'm going to find out whether my Biondo box is water, proof or whatever, and all that. It was hilarious.
We went over all the tractors. I've got 3 or 4 tractors here, and we went over, and they're all full of snow. So I took the enclosed cab one, of course, and the rest of the guys were cleaning off. They were using the leaf blowers to get the snow off the tractors, so we could go out and start pushing the snow off the track. It was crazy.
Wow,
that's insane.
And yet we only started like 2 hours late, maybe. I mean, it was not late. I mean, it was later than it was supposed to be, but like it was supposed to start at 9 and it was 10:30 or something. Like it was not
nice work.
It was awesome.
I think that's got a lot to say. Like what Jay said, is you build a reputation that he's got people showing up to his track while it's raining with the wipers on, because they know that you're not going to throw in the towel. I mean, we have a do not quit attitude around here. Mike O'Donnell has been a huge asset to the track. He's taken over as pretty much the track manager, and love working with him. He's one of us. He's a hard worker, and we have a lot of fun. And he's very sincere, very passionate about what we do out here.
That's awesome. Well, again, thank you guys. We really do appreciate you guys being on the show. You're welcome anytime.
Thanks,
Jay. We'd love to have you back. Yeah, it was very good talking to you guys. Aaron, thank you so much for getting Jay on the show. I appreciate that. And Ryan, as always, stay out of trouble. Hope you boys have fun this weekend. Like I said, for those of you watching at home, we will be live streaming starting Friday morning from the Southwest Showdown at Tucson Dragway. So I'll be on a plane tomorrow afternoon and we'll get all set up and we'll bring you Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, 3 full days of drag racing plus 2 shootouts. So it's going to be a good time for sure.
Thanks, Jay.
Jim.
Thanks, guys.
Chad, we got your cooler full of beer, cheese, and crackers like you requested.
Perfect.
Anything else?
No, I think that'll do it.
All right, guys. Hey, sorry
Thanks,
again
guys.
for my screw up, and we'll talk to you all soon.
See
No
ya.
problem. You're good to
All right,
go. All right,
All right,
boys and
bud.
girls. Appreciate it. We'll see y'all next
All right,
time.
bye-bye.
Thank you.